stay and eat there. Whereas we have this morning from the second book of the Kings, chapter 4, verse 8. The first reading of today, taken from the second book of the Kings, talks about hospitality, particularly hospitality to strangers. The Shunammite woman who helped Prophet Elisha did not do so because the prophet was afraid. Before she identified her as a prophet, she saw him as a stranger who was always passing by her house. Then she went out of her way to help this stranger, convinced her husband, and together they took Elijah in, offered him accommodation and feeding, and attended to him on several times. And eventually they had their reward, as we read from the book. One of the ethical principles upon which God will conduct his last judgment on us, as enumerated in the Bible precisely in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 25, is on our conduct, on our relationship, how we treat people we don't know, the strangers in our lives, or strangers in our lives. Kindness to strangers, hospitality towards strangers is as old as humanity itself. However, today, there is this growing propensity among people to avoid offering help to someone they don't know. There is this growing unwillingness, reluctancy among us. There is this attitude, if I don't know you so well, I wouldn't like to come close. There is this attitude where people try to abstain from offering help to someone they have never seen before or someone they don't know. People nowadays are actually more disposed to help someone they know, someone they have seen, at least someone they understand. Why is it that today people are not so disposed and so willing to help strangers? Why is it that today it seems that people are a little bit afraid or they try to move away from strangers? Number one, it could be because of the seeming insincerity of some strangers. I know some of you must have had this experience. People you don't know, people you haven't seen before in your life, they just walk up to you on the streets or they show up on your door asking you for help. They are indeed strangers, you haven't seen them before. They tell you all kinds of stories about themselves, about their lives, what they are passing through, their pains. They paint their situation and their life so horrible and so bad, and sometimes requiring urgent assistance. At times also, they make you feel that you are their last option and their only option, their last hope. That if you don't help them, things will go so bad. People who have been moved by such stories have gone out of their way to offer generously and tremendous help to those strangers. Sometimes they will discover eventually the insincerity of their claims, the insincerity of their stories. With that kind of experience, it is enough to put you off, to make you lose interest in helping someone else you don't know. It's enough to make you to be scared of strangers, because some will feel that they have been scammed, they have been ripped off, they have been exploited. They'll see themselves as victims eventually. In this kind of situation, the old philosophy or the old idea, once bitten to white child, could become a reality, could be applied. Also, people try to move away from strangers, maybe because of their own security, they are afraid, or because of to avoid some legal repercussions, or because of lack of accountability, especially when you are helping strangers in a distant land or in overseas, or because there is absolute disregard to the donor's intent. You give something, you give someone something for a particular reason or for a particular purpose. They use it for something else. When this kind of thing happens, you may not feel disposed again to be of help to someone you don't know. Whatever the experience is, or whatever the reason is, no matter how horrible it is, it remains our moral obligations, part of our moral obligations as followers of Jesus Christ, to help strangers. Jesus made it clear that on the last day, part of the question you're going to ask me as Nathaniel is, when I was a stranger, Nathaniel, did you make me welcome? When I was a stranger, did you attend to me? So it remains part of our final exam that we are going to be examined on how we treated people. We never knew people, we never saw their face for the first time, people who showed up in our lives, strangers. I remember one of the times I came to England from Switzerland to do summer work. I went to Tesco with this Monsignor. You know, as we are coming out from that big Tesco, as we have here in Slough, you usually see these gentlemen, sometimes ladies, who will approach you to say £1, 1 penny. So that gentleman approached us and said, please, can you give me £1 so that I can eat? If you look at him, you actually know that this guy is something else. So smilingly and generously, the Monsignor pulled out his wallet and gave him £1. As we were going away, I said to him, but Monsignor, this guy is going to smoke. He's going to drink this £1. He said to me, Nathaniel, calm down. I gave him £1 because I have £1 with me. And at this moment, I can afford it. So since he asked for £1, and since I have £1, so I gave him £1. And secondly, I gave him £1 because he said he wants to eat. Let's leave our suspicion. I gave him this £1 because he said he wants to eat. If he decides to go and smoke and drink with £1, Nathaniel, it is not our problem. It is his. We have done good. What if anywhere he decides to eat with that £1? Or because we have suspicion that he's going to drink with that £1, and we have £1, and because of our suspicion, we decide to withhold our £1. It is our duty, Nathaniel, to do what we can when we can. It is a good deed, so don't worry. We are going to be blessed by giving out £1. If you decide to smoke or do anything with £1, it is not our problem. Let's leave the story. Sometimes, if we evaluate the logicality of their stories, if we concentrate on finding out the validity, the truthfulness of their claims, we may not be able to help. When I was in Northampton, one afternoon, a family showed up at the door. I led them into my office, and they started their story. In all, they were looking for help. In all sincerity, when I was listening to their story, it was like I was watching a movie, because the story was not making any sense. There was no connection. There will be a lot of discrepancies. They were coming from Manchester and they had come to London. There was no connection. But these guys, we are here to ask for help. What did I do? I got my wallet, pulled out what I had, and I said to them, you see, I'm giving you this, not because I believe your story. It didn't make sense at all. Your story is not logical. It has no meaning to any discerning mind. But I'm giving you this, not because I believe your story, because I see that beyond your story, there is a need. That if I evaluate the story you have just enumerated before me, certainly, I will write you off. They smiled and thanked me and went away. What motivated the woman, the Shunammite woman in the Bible we read today, was because she saw a need. She saw somebody who used to pass by her house, and she convinced herself that this stranger needs help. This stranger needs attention. I could also give this stranger a place in my house. Yes, I have a place in my house. So let me help a stranger. Dear friends, as I said before, if we concentrate on finding out the logicality of stories of people who walk to ask for help. If we concentrate on finding out if this our suspicion is real, certainly we wouldn't help. And Jesus says clearly today, if you can give as small as a cup of cold water, if you can, don't mind the story, don't mind your fears, don't mind if there is accountability, don't mind if whatever you are giving is being used for the people. They thought that by this act you are doing something good and there's a reward attached to it. Don't mind if the person will abuse it. It is not your problem. Just like the Monsignor said to me, Nathaniel, ours is to do good when we can. Let's leave our suspicion and our judgments. And there's a beautiful passage or a line in the Bible about hospitality to strangers. In the letter to the Hebrews chapter 13 verse 2, it says clearly, people who have offered hospitality, kindness to strangers, some of them have done so without knowing they were entertaining, they were actually encountering angels. Dear friends, there are many people who will come on our path. Many people who will carry a sort of stories to come around. If you have a cup of water to give, do not allow your former horrible experience in the hands of strangers. Do not allow your suspicion to stop you from doing good. To do good, especially to strangers, as I said at the beginning, remains part of that moral obligation upon which all of us will be examined.